Hey guys, welcome to Rationality, Reason, and Reality. I'm Supernova. Now, I am going to break a promise that I made in the past, and I'm not going to go through all of the different arguments for why zero point 0.9 repeating supposedly equals 1, because in research for this episode on limits, I found that my ideas are not groundbreaking. They're not new. They're unpopular, but I'm not the first one to have them, and I'm not the only person to argue them now. I keep making it sound like I am against the mathematical community, and I have been in all the videos that I've seen and the people who comment on my videos, but I'm not entirely. There are some people that still carry on my views, and they're not fringe rogue people. They just use an unpopular form of math. And I'm going to discuss that in talking about the history of calculus. Now, when I wanted to do a video on limits, I kind of had an idea of what limits are. I went through all the calculus classes on khanacademy.org, which is a great resource for learning. I never took calculus in high school or even in college, but I had gone over it. It's just something that I never applied in my everyday life as a maintenance guy. I never had to use it. So it's just mostly gotten lost. I know most of the things that I'm looking at, but I couldn't care, and a lot of it is still like a foreign language to me. So uh, I refresh myself by going through wikipedia.org and looking through calculus and the definition of limit, where it came from and such, and I found some very fascinating stuff. Now, when calculus was first invented by simultaneously by Sir Isaac Newton and Gottfried Leibniz, they both did it pretty much the same way that I do. They believed in infinitesimals, and if you're wondering about that term, it just means point infinite zeros 1, or 1 over infinity, or as it's usually expressed, the difference between 1 and zero point 0.9 repeating, which is what I've claimed is there, and it's non-zero, and they believe that. In fact, Leibniz came up with something called the law of continuity, where he said what is true of finite numbers ought to be true of infinite numbers, which is the exact same thing that I've said in the past video. That was their thinking, and so they used infinitesimals. And Newton didn't like doing that, so in his latter work he got away from it, even though Leibniz was comfortable with them. But most people sided with Newton. Mathematicians in general didn't like them. They weren't a real number. They weren't a number that you could describe or use very well. And methodologically, it was just kind of dumb, because you never have to round anything off to the infiniteth degree. You don't need a calculation that's that specific, and so it just made a lot more sense to round it off. And in the 1870s, when a mathematician named Karl Weierstrass came up with the modern definition of limit, known as the epsilon delta definition of limit, the same one that has been expressed to me several times by commenters, uh, that's when mathematicians just basically got away from the whole idea of infinitesimals, and it just became like an embarrassing past, and they decided that rounding up just made a lot more sense methodologically, if not philosophically. And so that's where we find ourselves in the modern day. Now, when I say I'm not breaking any new ground, I'm not talking about Leibniz and Newton. Their ideas were superseded by others. You know, you could say that their views are outdated, but not superseded by everybody. There's still some people who use infinitesimals in math, and that form of calculus is known as non-standard calculus. And I'll include a link below because I think it's worth reading up on. I don't think the people who comment on my videos are even familiar with this. Otherwise, I think I would have seen this phrase. It would have been so helpful if somebody along the way said, yes, you are absolutely right in the framework of non-standard calculus, but we prefer standard calculus. I wish somebody had said that, because that would have saved me a lot of time and trouble. But anyway, so my definition of limit, of course, is different from the definition of limit that most people use, because they're using a different form of calculus. And in that different form of calculus, you could say that 0.9 repeating equals 1, because they're just rounding off. As I've said many times, it's not exactly logically consistent, but it doesn't really matter in any practical way. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the videos that I've done on math. I have no more forthcoming. I'm not introducing anything that's totally new. There are real, legit mathematicians with degrees and such who are already discussing the things that I have, and I guess they know that their form of math is unpopular, but logically consistent. And so I hope I catch you in my next video, which totally won't be about math. Peace out.